If your life is filled with money and groupies and fame, at some point, people will start spreading fake stories about you. But with all the crazy gossip out there, here are some rumors about musicians that actually turned out to be true. For some reason, frustrated creatives sometimes turn violent. What if the Beach Boys had appreciated Charles Manson's abilities as a songwriter? It might not have helped, but who knows? SF Gate reports that Manson desperately wanted to be famous, and after becoming friends with the Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson in 1968, they started collaborating.
They came to the ranch, lady. I didn't go to them, they came to me. You're stealing my music every day. You're writing my songs, you're playing my game.
Finally, the Beach Boys agreed to buy Manson's song Cease to Exist. Manson's one stipulation was they couldn't change it at all, but Wilson did, heavily, and changed the title to Never Learn Not to Love. The song ended up as a B-side. The reason some people don't believe this story is that Manson's name didn't appear on the record. Wilson took full credit for the song, and Manson was furious. One songwriter claims Manson approached Wilson and basically threatened to kill his children. Instead of being terrified, Wilson allegedly beat the crap out of Manson. That was the end of Manson's music career. A year later, his followers killed Sharon Tate and 4 others. The CEO of Snapchat might be worth billions of dollars, but even he must bow to the awesome power of Rihanna. Snopes reported that in March 2018, the social media app hosted an advertisement for a mobile game called Would You Rather. Users were given the unbelievably offensive choice to either punch Chris Brown or slap Rihanna. If you missed part of the 2000s, you might not be aware why that's even worse than just encouraging violence in general. Rihanna and Chris Brown used to date, and during their relationship, it went public that he abused her, so making light of it was extremely tone-deaf. When screenshots of the ad started going viral, Snapchat pulled it. But a few days later, Rihanna addressed the issue. In a now-deleted Instagram post, Riri told her then 61 million followers that domestic violence was not a joke and that the ad let all victims down. And instead of going after the game, Rihanna then appeared to tell her followers to delete the Snapchat app entirely, noting that she had never been a fan of it. The same day Rihanna posted that message, Snapchat's stock dropped $754 million in value. This wasn't normal, and nothing else bad happened for the app around that time that would have caused such a massive sell-off. So it appears that one Instagram post by Rihanna really does have the power to cause panic on Wall Street. In September 2016, Through the Wire, Kanye West's debut single from 2004 started trending on Twitter. According to Spin, it all began when a random person posted it in a since-deleted tweet. And what's crazy is Kanye still got the world thinking he was in a bad car accident October 2002. All I'm gonna say is come to Chicagoland and ask. This resulted in other people replying that they agreed Kanye was a big ol' liar. The background is, Kanye was a music producer, not a rapper, before Through the Wire. The song got its name from the fact that when he recorded it, his jaw was literally wired shut, the result of a horrific car crash.
I recorded the song Through the Wire 2 weeks later with my mouth still wired shut.
Getting in the crash had inspired Kanye to finally pursue his dream of becoming an artist in his own right. But now people were claiming Kanye's whole origin story was built on a lie. The conspiracy theory is that Kanye was really jumped by some guys in Chicago for stealing music rather than being messed up in a car crash in Los Angeles like he claims. But it turns out there's a ton of evidence that supports Kanye's version of events. MTV reported on the crash at the time. Also, he wasn't the only person hurt. The other victim, who even sued Kanye after the crash, was so badly injured he couldn't work for a year. The lawsuit, plus the fact that there's evidence Kanye went to the hospital in California and not Illinois, should pretty well prove he wasn't lying about it.
To nearly lose your life, to nearly lose your mouth, your voice, as a career as a rapper, your face. You know, I had to be on TV. My face looks crazy to me now.
You might have read that Billy Joel doesn't sell tickets for the front row of his concerts, instead giving them away to, quote, real fans who can only afford the cheap seats. According to Joel himself, he actually does this. In an interview with Billboard in 2014, he explained his logic. Joel said that for years, scalpers would get their hands on the front row seats, which were originally pretty reasonably priced, and sell them at a huge markup. This meant when Joel was looking out at the audience members closest to him, all he'd see was rich people. He didn't think they had the right attitude. Instead of standing up and cheering and getting into the music, the fat cats would just sit there as if saying, "Entertain me, piano man." Joel says he finally got sick of it and wanted to know where the real fans were. It turned out they were in the cheap seats. The younger, enthusiastic people who, as he explained it, make the most noise could only afford to be way in the back. So, according to Joel, they hold the front row seats now, and when the audience starts coming in, the road crew goes to the worst seats and brings people forward. He says that way you've got people in the front row that are really happy to be there, real fans. There are lots of rumors that certain stars are such divas that they'll only be filmed or photographed from their alleged good side. These days, the most famous one-sided woman is Ariana Grande. Stories abound about how she'll only allow people to see the left side of her face. This is apparently because, as The Atlantic reports, she has a dimple on the left side, and since dimples are adorable, that's the side she wants you to see, and only that side. If you watch her music videos, you'll notice catching her right side is extremely difficult. Same when you search her images on Google. According to People magazine, Mariah Carey also has an apparent good side, in her case, the right side. She says that at 19 years old, a woman from her record label told her she photographed better from her right, and she believed her. Many of her first album covers focus on the right side of her face. But the queen of good sides is Barbra Streisand, according to Yahoo. Among other things, she will only come on talk shows if she's shot from her left side. This means hosts making bizarre excuses for why they switched seats with her. It even meant canceling an interview with Jimmy Kimmel when she refused to let him make fun of the obvious musical chairs arrangement.
But the condition was we couldn't talk about the fact that we switched around. I was like, I just don't see how that was going to work. Yeah.
Wow.
Some people don't want to answer when Jehovah's Witnesses show up at the door, but at one point there was a chance that person was Prince. While often passed off as just a rumor, Prince did participate in the door-to-door evangelism of his faith.
You know that you're being inspired by God, and you pretty much know you better answer that call or suffer the consequence.
According to Entertainment Weekly, despite his rather steamy lyrics and lifestyle, Prince became a decidedly non-hedonistic Jehovah's Witness in 2001. 2 years later, a woman in Minnesota answered a knock at the door to discover the pop star and another musician standing there. He introduced himself as Prince Nelson, his real name, and then came inside and started talking about Jehovah. After listening to them read the Bible for a bit, the Jewish homeowner told them she was not interested, so they gave her a pamphlet and left. The woman described him as very kind, although she called the event so bizarre. This was far from the only time he went door-to-door over the years. The LA Times reports that Prince would sometimes disguise himself and that the people he preached to, quote, never called him out on it. They listened to his message and respected his opinion. According to Billboard, Prince himself said, "Sometimes people act surprised, mostly they're really cool." However, one reporter who interviewed the musician in 2004 didn't appreciate Prince's attempt to convert him very much. Calling the situation a little uncomfortable, he said, "Prince got pretty intense."
You know, I just had a thought. Maybe we're bothering people by trying to change the religion. What if we don't have all the answers?
You're right, Noreen. Let's go get real jobs.
There had long been a rumor that someone had smoked Tupac Shakur's ashes after he was killed in 1996. But it wasn't until 2011 that anyone admitted to participating in the bizarre act. Members of Tupac's group, The Outlaws, make the whole thing sound kind of nice. According to The Independent, band member Eyebrow-Raising says the late rapper explicitly asked for it if you listen closely enough. In Tupac's track Black Jesus, he states that his, quote, last wishes are for his ashes to be smoked. Eyebrow-Raising admitted that Tupac never actually told them that was indeed what he wanted, but they decided to take the lyrics seriously. After Tupac was cremated, another band member, rapper Noble, said, "We had a little memorial for him with his mom and his family. They went to the beach where they indulged in things Tupac loved, like chicken wings, orange soda, and marijuana. The Outlaws then proceeded to combine some of the late rapper's ashes with the marijuana and smoke it, or as they put it, we twist up some of that great granddaddy California kush and mix the big homie with it, so, you know, Tupac is flowing through our system."
People just was like, oh man, they smoked their ashes. Some people was like, man, that's some sick. And then other people was like, yo, that's hella cool. You know, I'd have did that for my homeboy too.
Though the group all agree this happened, the revelation came as a shock to Tupac's family. While they didn't accuse the Outlaws of lying, they did release a statement that Tupac's mother, who was at the memorial, wouldn't have allowed it if she'd known what the group was doing. One of the stories that goes around about Elvis Presley is called the catfish incident, and it turns out to be true, a sad reflection of what he could be like in the drug-filled later part of his life. According to the book What the Great Ate, Elvis absolutely hated seafood, especially the smell. This dislike became key on July 20th, 1975, during a concert in Virginia, where Virginia Living claims he had a meltdown. First, he complained that 12,000 people were breathing on him. Then he whined he could smell green peppers and onions. But the final straw was when he turned and accused his 4 backup singers of eating catfish. No one knew exactly what he meant by it, but it was obviously hostile. He'd taken to lobbing insults at the women ever since he broke up with one of them. 3 of the backup singers walked off stage. A review of the concert reported that tension among the fans was noticeable. A lot of people think there was a racial undercurrent to the insult. Elvis's only explanation for the outburst was, "I thought it was funny." In 1977, Marvel Comics published the first ever Kiss-themed comic book, an excellent idea considering the members of Kiss already looked like comic book characters. Well, a rumor began circulating that band members contributed something extra special to the project. The late comic book legend Stan Lee explained the concept like this:
that every kid or everybody who bought a Kiss comic book in some way was getting a little bit of Kiss's blood.
You heard that right. The ink used to illustrate the comic book reportedly had some of the band members' blood mixed into it. Gene Simmons, who regularly spewed fake blood from his mouth during Kiss concerts, confirmed in Kiss Official magazine that this really happened, explaining that someone came up with the idea of putting real blood in the ink. And it sounds like the rest of the band was totally down with the idea. Simmons claims, "We all flew up to Buffalo to Marvel's printing plant where they pour the ink and make comic books." Blood was reportedly drawn and added to the ink, and the whole thing was witnessed by a notary public. All these years later, Kiss members are still dining out on this story. In 2018, Paul Stanley told Sci-Fi Wire,
"We put our red blood into the first Kiss comic, and we're thinking of putting something into the yellow ink for the next comic."
Do you know what a tour writer is? It's the set of instructions that musicians give to concert promoters to ensure a show runs smoothly. Well, the members of Van Halen concocted what's possibly the most famous tour writer request of all time. A note in the middle of a 53-page document that read, "M&Ms, warning, absolutely no brown ones." The request wasn't a joke either. If brown M&Ms were found backstage, there would apparently be serious consequences, as David Lee Roth explained in a 2012 interview.
The promoter would forfeit the entire show at full pay.
It sounds like typical rock star egotism at work, but there was actually a method to the madness. Van Halen concerts involved complicated lighting and stage directions, and if tour writer directions weren't followed carefully, it could potentially spell disaster. Ultimately, finding brown M&Ms backstage could only mean one thing.
Then guaranteed the promoter had not read the contract writer, and we had to do a serious line check, because frequently we had danger issues.
Pretty clever, you gotta admit. Rod Stewart possesses one of the most unique voices in rock and pop, and several decades ago he realized he needed to preserve it. And we're not talking about vocal warm-ups or a nice cup of tea. Stewart reportedly used to love cocaine, but snorting drugs can potentially damage nasal passages, which in turn can affect your throat and voice. So Stewart and his former bandmate Ronnie Wood cooked up another way to take the drug. As Stewart told Katie Couric in 2012,
"You know the way the French take their medicine in little capsules and put it up their bottom? Obviously. So we tried that."
Glad we got to the bottom of that. David Bowie and Mick Jagger's 1985 cover of Martha and the Vandellas' Dancing in the Street was a bona fide musical event. The idea of a Bowie and Jagger collaboration proved irresistible to fans, particularly since proceeds from the song benefited famine relief efforts in Africa. To this day, the festive video is particularly memorable for the singer's questionable dance moves and serious on-screen chemistry. Well, according to Christopher Anderson's book, Mick, the Wild Life and Mad Genius of Jagger, there was lots of chemistry off-screen as well. In October 1973, Bowie's then-wife, Angie, reportedly returned to the couple's London home, and the maid allegedly told her, "Someone is in your bed." When Angie went upstairs to investigate, she reportedly discovered her then-husband and Jagger in bed together. As Angie tells it,
"I certainly didn't catch anybody in the act. All I found were two people sleeping in my bed, and they happened to be naked."
According to Anderson's book, Angie was certain that something sexy had taken place. Nevertheless, the three of them reportedly had coffee and orange juice after Bowie and Jagger woke up. In the same book, singer Ava Cherry, who lived in the Bowie residence in the early 70s, is quoted as saying, "Mick and David were really sexually obsessed with each other. Even though I was in bed with them many times, I ended up just watching them have sex." Here's a story that's been flapping around for years. On January 20th, 1982, Ozzy Osbourne played a show in Des Moines, Iowa, and bit the head off a bat.
I picked it up. It was a real bat. You know?
Was it alive?
Well, it was till I bit into the head of it, you know?
According to Mick Wall's book, Black Sabbath, Symptom of the Universe, Osbourne thought the bat was a toy, until he stuffed it in his mouth and felt the wings flapping. A concert-goer named Mark Neal took credit for throwing the bat on stage, but told the Des Moines Register that the creature was already dead. Whatever the case, Osbourne had to get checked for rabies right after the concert. What's more rock and roll than that? Actually, don't answer that, because in 1981, Ozzy reportedly attended a meeting with some CBS record executives and bit the heads off 2 doves.
Well, I was kind of peckish when they had the CBS convention.
According to Wall's book, Osbourne had wanted to end the meeting in a spectacular fashion by releasing 3 white doves into the air. Instead, Osbourne apparently got too drunk before the meeting, and then he got annoyed with a chatty PR person. As he explained it, I pulled out one of these doves and bit its head off, just to shut her up. Then I did it again with the next dove, spitting the head out on the table, and the woman fell on the floor screaming. Man, talk about a PR nightmare.